Okay, might kick off. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second Grab Coffee session for 2023. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're all meeting today and pay my respects to the elders past and present. And I extend that respect to any First Nations people that might be joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brittany Mackey and I'm the Governance Admin Officer at Sutherland Shire Council, and I'm also an executive on the Professionals Next Gen Committee. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. Can you just make sure your mics are all muted throughout the session, and also note that we are recording this session. Please feel free to put your name and your council on your little Zoom profile so we can all get to know each other. If you have any questions throughout the session, you're welcome to just put them in the chat and then we can look at them at the end of the sort of Q&A part with Claire and I, or you can just feel free to ask them yourselves once we get to that part of the session. So to kick off, today's session we'll be focusing on this topic of like work-life balance and flexibility, and joining us to discuss that today is Clare Phelan from Sutherland Shire Council as well. She is our Director Corporate Support and at the moment is our acting CEO. So thanks very much, Clare, for joining us and giving up your time to speak with us all this morning. It's very much appreciated from all of us.
Thanks so much for having me along.
Yes, thank you. So Clare, a brief little intro. Clare first joined local government as an accounting cadet and has been in local government for more than 20 years now in various corporate roles and in both regional and metro councils in New South Wales and Western Australia. Clare's keenly focused on organisational strategy, financial sustainability and continuous improvement, and is passionate about building better, stronger communities through meaningful work and helping team members unlock their potential. And as I said, we're both from Sutherland Shire Council, so I'll vouch to that last part. I definitely think she's great at helping team members do that. So to kick off, Clare, that was a little brief introduction. Could you please give us a bit more of a summary of your career journey so far?
Yeah, thanks, Britt. I think you hit all the high points there. So over 2 decades now, and I kind of got into local government a little bit by accident. I was studying accounting first year at university, did not particularly love it, and then this ad for a finance cadet at Eurobodalla Shire Council popped up. Can't say I knew too much about what councils did, certainly didn't know what a cadet was, but in a beautiful coincidence, I found my place, and local government very quickly proved to be a pretty good fit for me. So I think when I got that job, it was really the beginning of what's been an incredibly rewarding and at times somewhat challenging career. I think starting out as a cadet was an amazing kind of technical introduction and gave me a lot of exposure across the span of local government operations. When I was getting towards the end of my cadetship, I happened to be waiting for a meeting with a director, I think, at that point. And this was in the days where the Green Local Government Job Directory was printed out, and it was a little booklet that arrived each week. And I saw an ad there for a place called Lachlan Shire Council, who were looking for a finance manager, and to their absolute credit, they weren't looking for somebody with years and years of experience and were prepared to take a punt on a highly motivated undergraduate. So I thought that could be me. Chucked my hat in the ring and got to work for a pretty brilliant director out there. And so moved out west. I didn't actually know where Lachlan Shire was. I thought I was moving down to the Victorian border. It turns out I was going smack into the heart of New South Wales. So geography is not my strong suit. It's fair to say. Excuse me. And so from there, it's been a series of senior manager and executive roles in a number of councils through regional New South Wales, over to town of Port Hedland in Western Australia, and then back for a few years at Wollongong City Council, which was an incredible opportunity and a period I think, huge growth for me. And it was that role, I think, that helped me then secure the Director Corporate role here at Sutherland Shire Council. And I love it.
Good. And I would like to note there's a couple of us from Sutherland online today, so good to know.
Awesome. Fantastic team here.
It's funny how you started off by saying you weren't loving accounting, because my next point, I just threw this in, I was going to be like, ask you why accounting? Where did you come up with that one? Did you always want to be an accountant, or you just started that out of high school into university?
This is a horrible story. And I hope my kids do something very, very, very different. When I was graduating high school, it was just prior to the introduction of GST. So when my parents had the Herald lying around, the most amount of jobs with the highest amount of money were in accounting. And so 16, 17-year-old me thought that was a very good way to determine a career path. Turns out that was never going to work for me, but local government finance was an entirely different fit, because it really tapped into that idea of the work we do matters. And it wasn't so much the accounting piece, but more the impact that kind of work had. It's interesting.
That's great. I think that's pretty common mindset of a 16 or 17-year-old. How to make the most money. I don't think you're an outlier there.
Yeah. Fortunately, a number of things happened that led me to quite a rewarding career, because I can't imagine myself sitting punching out financial reports in public practice.
Yeah. And then, my next question, which I think you sort of started to touch on it when you were giving us your career summary, but did you always kind of have this plan or goal to one day be a director, or did your path to leadership kind of evolve, like you said, as you saw the job at Sutherland Shire and then as the opportunities came along?
Yeah, so definitely wouldn't have known what a director was at the beginning of my career. No particular aspirations in terms of seeking a particular title or a position, but I would say that I'm fairly achievement oriented. So whatever I turn my mind to, I want to do really, really well. I think setting goals, persevering through challenges to achieve that outcome, believing that we can make things better, has really always driven me, whether that's in accounting or governance or forward planning. And I think to a large extent, most of those goals in my early career were around developing technical capability, and being a bit of an expert in whatever field I was working in. So I think to a large extent that technical proficiency then opened up doors to opportunities that allowed me to step into leadership roles. I don't think those opportunities came about because of any stellar leadership qualities as such, but you prove yourself to be a hard worker, you can get things done, you're reasonably smart, good work ethic, and then that in itself created opportunities. And then stepping into those leadership roles, all of a sudden you're presented with an entirely different set of challenges, leadership challenges, which are entirely different from sort of technical or professional field challenges. So I think there's a point in your career where the skill set, particularly as you're moving up through the organisation, where the real focus of your skill set needs to shift from that technical area of expertise to how do you lead teams of people to deliver great things. I think so it's definitely, I'd say, evolved over the years, and had the opportunity by moving from one organisation to another to really reflect on what things have worked well for me in previous roles that I want to hold on to and take with me, and what are things that I do entirely differently. So great experience, but let's leave that behind and try a new approach in a new organisation.
Yeah. That's a great mindset, I think. For someone that's looking at building this sort of leadership career and pathways. So now moving into sort of the focus of the session, looking at like work-life balance. as you've evolved in your career and developed your leadership career, do you think your approach to your own work-life balance has changed alongside your career?
Definitely. I think though, because particularly in the early parts, because it had to. So there'll be a number of you on this call where you're in the earlier stages of your career. Your life is pretty free. You've got a lot of independence. So I was happy to devote lots and lots of waking hours to work. I was loving my roles, making a difference. There was never any shortage of projects and activity to get through and improve. But you introduce relationships, you introduce babies, puppies, homes, all of those things, and your priorities sort of necessarily shift over time. It was interesting having these questions kind of in front of me for a couple of days to think back and reflect on the last couple of decades. And with the benefit of time and distance, I look at that now and go, I don't really think that's work-life balance. I think you're just, it was more of a logistical accommodation. So you have to be at a particular place to pick up your kids from the childcare centre before it's a $5 a minute penalty.
Yeah.
I think that genuine growth and genuine commitment to the benefits of work-life balance, for me in particular, I've only realised in the last few years. And that's very much through an investment in my own leadership development and understanding the impacts that has on how you show up, and very much taking an evidence-based approach to it. In terms of understanding that in order to be the best possible version of myself and show up as the best possible leader for all the people around me, I really need to be looking after myself from, a fuel perspective, rest, exercise, relationships, because they all contribute to the best sort of state of physical and mental well-being. That is really about how that enables you to show up for your teams. If we don't look after ourselves, how can we look after the people around us? And that resonates very much for me. If I get that right, I'd also say I'm a significantly nicer person to be around. And that delivers rewards. You feel better about yourself. People around you feel better as well. I also think the other thing that has shifted over the last few years is a real sense of perspective. So what are the things in your life that really, really, really matter? And I can't imagine there's too many of us who want to be on our deathbed going, oh, gee, she was a very hard worker. You want to be at that point in your life and reflecting on the richness of relationships around you, whether that's personal or colleagues that you've connected with over the years. I want to stay fit and healthy and fairly sharp-witted until I'm 100. There are things, that are significantly more important to me. And I think when you get that sense of perspective, it really helps you align your big rock goals with your actions. So making sure that with the limited time we've got, we spend it on the right things, not the busy stuff.
Yes. That's great. And your point about looking after yourself first, I think it's probably something that everyone needs to be reminded of every once in a while as well, because it's very easy to get kind of sucked into everything that's happening around you and try and prioritize what's happening in work or your family's lives or whatever, but you need to take that time for yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah, completely. And recognizing that not only are you a whole person, the people around you are whole people with all sorts of things going on in their life outside of work.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And what you kind of talked about just now sort of leads into the next thing I was going to talk about leading from the front in an organization when you're promoting a work-life balance.
Yeah.
I can already tell from what you've been saying, I think that you think that's very important as a leader of the organization, to kind of lead from the front on this perspective.
Completely. Authenticity is key here. Our people watch their people leaders. You guys see what we pay attention to. You see how we conduct ourselves. And I think on the whole, people have a pretty great BS detector. So if there is a misalignment between the words coming out of your mouth and the things that you're doing, people are acutely aware of that. And that doesn't just apply to whether you're talking about well-being or delivering quality outcomes. Once people see a disconnect, that can really undermine perceptions of who you are as a leader. So at a role modeling level, for me, that means talking about well-being a lot, taking lunch breaks and exercising. And I quite often see Brittany out on our walks.
I was going to say, I'll vouch for Claire here. I'd see her go off for her lunchtime runs and walks as well.
Oh, that is so nice. I can't run with my life, but I can walk at pace. So we have wellbeing on the agenda. We invest time and money in educating others around why it matters. So things like building mental resilience and agility so that you can cope and persevere when times are a little bit tougher, equipping people with the skills to look after themselves, and calling out and rewarding people who are also role modeling those behaviours that we want to see, and getting the balance right, and making sure that we're checking in on our teammates when they're probably not doing so well on the work-life balance front. And I'm sure we all have those people in our teams who are just, workaholics. Occasionally need a tap on the shoulder to say, this is not just about how you're impacting yourself and living your life. This is also how it flows through your teams. But I do think as a leader, it actually goes a lot deeper than just surface level role modeling. We need to set up our people for success, and there are a series of systems and structures that can really support that. So if we are talking about achieving genuine work-life balance and focusing on employee well-being, we've got a number of levers at our disposal. So have we got our service levels set appropriately? Are we resourcing in a way that allows us to achieve those service levels? Are we leveraging technology to its full extent so that we can automate or eliminate manual and administrative tasks? Do our people have role clarity? Because that's a critical piece for being able to achieve work-life balance. So what is each individual? What is each team here to achieve? What does success look like for them? And have we clearly articulated our priorities through our teams? Because you might see people working really long, ridiculous days. I guess the question for you as a leader is, are they working on the right things, or are they spending their time in a way that is completely misaligned from our strategic objectives? So for me, it goes a lot deeper than just being seen and talking about the very obvious initiatives, but really examining organisational structures, systems and processes to make sure that they're set up in a way to facilitate what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think, it's very easy to just, for someone to say, I care about well-being and I care about your mental health, and everyone should go outside for 5 minutes at lunchtime and get some sun. But unless those practices are, like you said, very, deep rooted in the entire organizational systems, you're not going to see real change, I guess, and real attitude changes.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be somewhat superficial or tokenistic. So we've got some wonderful things that happen here at Sutherland Shire, like bring your dog to work day, and we're all going in Sutherland to surf. Fun run. We've got a step challenge currently happening in corporate support. So there is a lot of activity-based happening, which is awesome and great for building team and spreading that well-being message. At the same time, we can't lose sight of the big structural and systems pieces that are really going to affect change in a long-term sustainable way.
Absolutely. Okay, so just pivoting topics slightly. So as in your role as a director, one of your key customers and stakeholders of the organisation are our counsellors. How do you approach being available to them when they are also, like you said, real people who have real lives, have their own day-to-day jobs and families and things going on, and you might need to be available for them outside of your core sort of business hours, because that's when they're doing their counsellor work? how do you manage being available for them?
Yeah, that is such a great question, Brett. It is a reality of these roles that there will be outside business hours contact. For me, it's about how I manage it from a personal impact perspective and from a stakeholder perspective, because all of those things that you just said, Britt, are so true. And I think respect is key for that. So the role of a counsellor is largely voluntary. You know, what they get paid probably equates to 37 cents an hour for all the work that they put in. And it takes a pretty special kind of person to put their hand up for that role. In addition to that, like you just said, they often have full-time roles. They're running small businesses. They're on other boards. They're usually volunteers in other organisations, and they've got their own families and friends and relationships to maintain. Plus, in some cases, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of constituents to serve who are quite happy to take any immaterial issues straight to the top. So it's definitely not a 9-to-5 role for them. And I think out of respect, we need to accept that they're trying to squeeze that in everywhere else. So to manage it, I think it's about being respectful of each other's boundaries and roles. So that requires clear communication, good processes, and trust. So for me, I'll trust that our elected members will only pick up the phone and call me outside of hours when it's an urgent matter. Otherwise, they know they can send me an email and they can trust that I'll ensure they get a very timely reply. If we have good systems and processes that support counsellors in their roles, such as quality reporting, good customer service standards, technology that allows them to self-serve, good processes or formats for the exchange of information and ideas, and quality counsel reporting, all of those kind of systemic or structural pieces that facilitate them to be effective in their role actually go a long way to managing that outside of hours, I guess, contact.
Yeah.
And I think where you start dropping the ball on customer service, where there's a lack of clarity around information being exchanged, where there's a breakdown in trust, I think that's where you'll start to see out of hours impacts really kind of escalate.
Yeah, that's great and really interesting. And I know it's definitely something that us over in governance, we're always thinking about if we're, communicating with them in the best way and how we can put out information to them in the best way.
Yeah, and
always
understand that with
15 thinking.
Yeah, and we've got 15 elected members here at Sutherland. So what works for one doesn't necessarily suit best.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Britt's team are amazing at kind of having a plethora of ways of communicating with elected members. I do think it's that respect for each other's role.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so moving on, I just wanted to talk about this sort of not really post-COVID, it's still around, but how we've definitely now moved into a real sort of hybrid way of working, people in the office, at home, and still working on that blend. But with these technologies and all the processes that were developed as a kind of out of necessity during the lockdown periods of COVID, people could work anywhere. They could log on their couch, in their bed, like you could log on and work wherever. And now coming out of it, all those systems and technology, it all still exists and we're still using it, working in this hybrid sort of platform now. But do you think that it's become sort of a bit more difficult for people to switch off and step away from the desk because, you can pick up your phone anytime and there's a Teams message or there's your emails? Do you think it's kind of more difficult?
I think it can be all pervasive if you allow it to be. I think it's very easy to get caught up in it too. So I think that then requires a fair degree of self-awareness and discipline. It also requires good leadership. So if you're looking after others, whether that's in office or remote, you need to be in tune with your teams and what they're up to, and paying attention to that kind of outside of hours activity. It could easily take over all aspects of your life. And I think reflecting back on COVID, there was a period of time where it absolutely did for me. And so there's very much a lived experience, because you're just rolling from your computer to cook dinner. You're back in because there's nothing else to do, is there? I found that was a very easy trap for me to fall into, to a point where it did start to impact overall well-being. I was fortunate enough to have a very awesome person around me who was quite happy to say, this isn't working out so well for you right now in terms of how you're showing up in some of your meetings, or how you are showing up at home. And so they were very respectful, but very effective at getting me back to the things that I love. So ocean swimming and taking the dogs for a walk and spending quality time, and reintroducing that degree of discipline had a significant impact. That's my own personal experience. I know some people are amazing at it and they really thrive in a remote working environment. So I guess it's about how we set up systems and processes that really allow people to thrive, irrespective of the approach to remote, hybrid, or in office arrangements. Personally for me, I think I perform a lot better and show up in all aspects of my life when I've got separation and a degree of componentization. So when I'm in the office, I feel significantly more connected to my teams. I feel like it's easier to build and foster strong relationships, good communication through sort of incidental interactions. Remote working in my role means I might only have contact largely with my direct managers. So there's 150 other people who I might not otherwise get to engage with. So being in the office is certainly much more valuable for me from a work perspective. And then it means when I go home, I'm focused on the kids' sport or cooking a lovely dinner or whatever it is we happen to be doing. I personally just prefer that separation.
Yeah, I think it's invaluable, the kind of experiences you can get being in the office. Like, I remember I started in governance while we were still in a lockdown, and it was probably a month or two, and then I actually met my team members, and I'm like, oh, you don't look like your team's photo anymore. Like, just like the little things like that, and just being able to make those connections, and then see people that you might have emailed before but never spoken to or had any kind of conversation or relationship with. The office is definitely invaluable for making those kinds of connections.
Absolutely. And the email version of a person can be incredibly different from the in real life version of a person. And
exactly.
Particularly when you're early in your career, you would miss out on so much. I do think I'm a supporter of a hybrid model, but I do think you need to be very, very, very mindful of being present in the office, not just because of all the things you'll absorb, but because of the skills and perspectives you'll also share with your colleagues that they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. So it's a real two-way thing.
Definitely. Leading off from that, are there any habits you yourself or any activities that you yourself like to do in your spare time that you think help then make you be more effective when you come into work?
Yeah, for sure. And have this massive advantage of living in the most beautiful part of Australia, in Sutherland Shire. So we have gorgeous beaches, the Royal National Park on our doorstep. So for me, it's lots of bushwalks, dog walks on the beaches, ocean swims, things that are scientifically proved to improve mental and physical well-being. Spending time with family, volunteering, even though sometimes that drives me a little bit balmy. And by volunteering, I mean with kids' junior sport. But giving something a little bit different, or that I like to do in my spare time. The other thing is actively seeking out and absorbing other people's experiences of leadership and well-being, whether that's podcasts or documentaries on team dynamics, all of those kind of things that just continue to contribute to your own development. And there's always something you can take out of those, whether it's for work or home life.
I've got to ask, do you jump into the ocean and do you swim in the middle of winter, or do you do more of your bushwalks and other things during winter?
No, I actually prefer doing the ocean swimming in winter. I do. It's almost like a personal challenge. You set yourself a new goal. There's a thing here called Shark Island, just off Cronulla. Don't let the name put you off. So you jump in at South Cronulla and kind of swim right out around Shark Island and then make it through the washing machine back safely to shore. It's an incredible mental challenge, prepping yourself to get into the ocean in the middle of winter, particularly when visibility is low. And then when you're sitting on the back end of a wave and you see this wall of water coming through, I guess I'll survive this. That in and of itself, it's such a good feeling, such a great way to start the day.
And that's the sense of accomplishment once you're done. Although it's probably hard, I guess, to get out of the water because you're used to being in the cool temperatures by then. And then
it's a little bit painful across the road. On occasion, we need to lobby council to do some smoother footpaths.
My last little question discussion point for you is to finish off. Do you have any tips or advice for anyone on maintaining this work-life balance, for anyone that might be struggling trying to blend this, especially people like early in their careers, as we briefly talked about, still trying to kind of find their footing?
Yeah, I think look at the people around you who are doing it really, really, really well, and don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help or advice. The other thing that is really important for me is be really clear on your goals. Like, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Why are you doing the things that you do? To what end? And if the things you're doing don't align to the things that really matter to you, there's a little bit of a reevaluation point in that. I'd also say work with a professional if that's an option for you. I've had the opportunity to work with somebody who happens to be a clinical psychologist, working with high-performing or building high-performing executives and taking a really evidence-based approach to mental resilience and how that's linked to well-being and leadership. And that has been invaluable for me, how you manage stress, how you maintain perspective, how to fuel and rest your brain so that it actually operates at peak performance. All of those things have been really helpful for me. Now, I appreciate that that's not going to be within everyone's reach. Most of your employers will have an EAP. Use it. There's trained counsellors and psychologists on the end of those lines. It's a very confidential service. It is no different than having a fitness passport or a personal trainer. Many of us on this call, we are very much reliant on our brain power and our state of well-being in terms of our career development. So why wouldn't you invest in that? Why wouldn't you invest in that? And then make sure that you're surrounded by people who tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So those people who love and respect you enough to tell you when it's time to make a few changes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, one of the things you said, asking for help, it sounds like such a simple thing, but it can be really hard for people sometimes. So it's just making that change and asking for help and just finding that courage to just ask the simple questions sometimes.
Yeah. And if you're feeling something, there's a very good chance that the people around you have lived similar experiences or are going through something similar. Speaking up is the very best way.
Well, that's everything from me. So I'll stop talking. And then if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask Claire while we have her, please just feel free, unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi Claire, my name's Caitlin. I'm from Lake Macquarie City Council. Thank you for your time today. It's been really interesting. I was interested in back where we started, and you were talking about moving from a really technically focused role into that sort of higher level strategic leadership role. And I wondered if you had some more tips on helping to shift your mindset and get those opportunities and letting go of needing to be in the real nitty gritty of everything, which I guess is maybe something that I struggle with, and being able to take that higher level perspective.
It is, it's tough. It is tough. It is really hard, particularly when you've been a subject matter expert in something, to allow room for other people to grow and shine. And there are absolute moments where you slip back into that pattern, and then you have to remind yourself, actually, I've got very, very, very capable people who are actually now far more skilled than me in this space. Step out and let them do their thing. My role is to provide them with the resources, the strategic direction, the support to do what they need to do. But I won't pretend for a second that was easy or happened overnight. And even now, I'm sure some of our brilliant finance professionals on this call will say sometimes I can't resist the urge to tell them which way the columns need to be. And I have to actively remind myself that's now not my role. I would say any opportunity that you get to do a secondment or career development or leadership development course, take it, because there is always a piece of gold that you can take and put into practice, but deliberately making the effort to practice it is key. And also, one of the other things that will help is where you're forced to step out of your technical area of expertise. So if you take a secondment into a different area that's not necessarily your technical background, all of a sudden it's around your ability to lead others, to set goals, to be clear on objectives, to monitor performance, and have feedback conversations where you're having to trust other subject matter experts that will really test and grow those skills.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Oh, hi, Elise.
Hi, Claire. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I have to go. I have to go to a meeting, but I just wanted to share, I suppose, not ask a question, but more if you can find someone like Claire within your organization as a mentor, that'd be the way to go in terms of getting on-site advice. So I think that, yeah, you've really helped me over the years. So thank you.
Oh, Elise, you're a superstar.
Gotta run. Bye.
Okay, bye. Elise and I used to work together.
Hi, Claire. Thanks so much for this morning. I had a question. You've talked a little bit about the things that you do, listen to, look for. Are there any particular resources or people that you follow or look to get inspiration around how to identify the goals that you want to put in place for yourself or the challenges you set for yourself?
Great question, Russell. The most random selection of things. So most of you will have come across Alicia McKay. I love her new approach to kind of calling out the BS aspects that you get caught up in corporate roles. it's been a nice counter. Obsessed with the Culture Bites podcast. I've worked with an organisation called Building Grit, Business Grit, and they offer courses Building Grit that are really around high performing executives. And then some really left of field things where you take so many lessons around team dynamics or leadership. Formula One's Drive to Survive is such an awesome example of how everyone plays a very, very critical role in achieving team success. That's what I mean, like a little bit random. You can watch a Formula One series and take something out of that for your own. The Last Dance, Michael Jordan, around an unrelenting pursuit of excellence, are all, if you look at anyone, whatever their chosen field is, where they are super, super, super successful, Kelly Slater and Make or Break, that they just pursue their goals with kind of an unrelenting energy and strive for being the best in the business. I think there's something you can get from all of those people, and they are all people who have had to achieve balance in order to achieve great things. So I would say be broad, because you can pick up lessons from all sorts of interesting places.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks. Oh, some mic issues there.
Oh, hi Claire, can you hear me? It's Bree from customer service.
I can. Hey, Bree.
Good. Sorry, I didn't know if I was cutting in on anyone else or not. I couldn't hear if it was working out okay. Thank you for your time, by the way. I guess my question is probably, or advice even, for people that might get a little bit of imposter syndrome, or think that if roles become available and they think they might necessarily be good at them, or their head might say to them, oh, you might not be good at it, you know, and stop you from potentially applying for something that deep down, I guess, you know you can do. What's your advice on your take on that?
Okay, so imposter syndrome, fake it till you make it. Like, what is in there, and this is about perspective, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen? You step into a role, you go, actually, this really isn't my cup of tea. You are young and talented and hardworking, go try something new. In terms of opportunities that come up, go for them, particularly in local government. We've got the most incredible array of professions and services that we deliver out to our community, that you can find yourself working in leisure centres, community services, libraries, strategic planning, governance. Put your hand up, because leaders across this organisation are always looking out for talent that you can tap into. My experience is that you can largely teach bright people anything, but there are particular character traits or attributes that are just so valuable that you want to harness people with energy, commitment, enthusiasm, you know, a genuine approach to collaboration, and having them as part of the team is critical to achieving those broader objectives. Put your hand up for things, and continue to remind yourself, like, really amazing things could happen. What's the worst that could happen?
Thank you.
Hansney's asked a question in the chat. Do you think the local government sector has some time to catch up to more contemporary perspectives on working flexibly, job share, etc., particularly because of the limitations with operational roles? How do you think the sector can do this more effectively?
I think COVID was a bit of a game changer for local government. It would have taken us decades to get to the idea of hybrid working, but there's nothing like a global pandemic and the need to continue service delivery to bring about radical change. The challenge for us is to make sure that we don't revert back to old ways, and that we continue to challenge ourselves to accommodate different configurations or different ways of working. Do I think local government will be a leader? Potentially we're not going to be at the forefront, but we also have, you know, a huge amount of very talented people who work for us, and our union stakeholders who are very effective at advocating for change and flexible work arrangements. And that's an amazing thing. As leaders, we just need to keep our minds open to finding ways of allowing it to work and setting it up for success. For me, so long as the, you know, customer and community aren't missing out, you know, we've got all sorts of work arrangements that we can accommodate. And talent shortage will force us to be there too. So there's a number of external factors that are at play as well that will drive change through the industry.
I know I've already asked the question, Claire, but I just want to chime in now and just say that it's great that our debate last year at the conference has had such a profound impact on you, and you're open to the hybrid now and not just advocating.
You guys wiped us.
For those who weren't there, we had at the Next Gen conference last year, we had a debate between Next Gen members and a few of the executive, and Claire was one of them. And we were debating whether the future of work was remote for local government. And unfortunately for the executive members, they were given the task of trying to argue the fact that, or debate the fact that we should all be in the office all the time. And they were soundly beaten.
Yeah. Flogged, absolutely flogged. That was the most kind of, quite a challenging exercise. I don't believe that everyone needs to be in the office full time. I think we need to build our approach to work around principles and understand individual differences and what works to achieve the best outcomes.
And I think a key theme that you've sort of weaved through every answer you've had today is that it's different for everybody, this thing, what works and what contributes to well-being. And, you know, because you've talked about life stage, other commitments, where you are, like what your work style is, your preferences around well-being and what matters for you. There's so many variables that it's, you know, there's no one size fits all. And the role of leadership in supporting that. Yeah, well, I'm just repeating back to you what you've been saying. It's been great to hear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone have any more questions before Claire has to head off? Okay, I think we're all done then. Well, that will bring us to the end of our recorded session today. So once again, just want to say thank you very much, Claire, for your time this morning. I think you've given everyone some really valuable insights to think about from your answers today. So it's been great. Thanks everyone online for attending today and coming along. If anyone would like to stay online for a few more minutes, you're welcome to and chat with amongst one another. This recording will stop now, so you won't be recorded or anything. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks for having me along, Britt.
Thanks, Claire.
See you guys.